Welcome to the October online collaboration for empowering social studies teachers for smarter balanced assessment. In this module, we're going to spend some time going through the different types of prompts once more, looking at development for selected response, constructed response, and performance task, and have the opportunity to do some self-assessment and reflection in Edmodo. When developing selected response items, the developers who are creating these tasks are making sure that the stems or question present a complete problem. They want students to know what to do before they start looking at the options. In grades 3 through 5, they want all item stems to be in the form of a question. An open stem is only going to be used if doing so would reduce the amount of words and repetition within the prompt itself. In 6th through 11th grade, open-ended stems are allowed. For developing the options in a selected response item, they want to make sure that all options are plausible, but that there is a correct answer. So when a student reads through these, they definitely have to determine the correct answer by ruling out from several plausible answer choices that this is the best possible answer. All options are going to be similar in length. They don't want students to be able to rule out an answer as being wrong or correctly identify one because it's shorter or longer than the others. All options are going to be arranged in a logical order. Everything's basically going to be showcased here using the same order that it was used in the text. And all options are going to be followed by a distractor analysis for teachers and developers, which help item writers think through what would be the common misunderstanding. So what that means is if you've got an answer choice A, B, C, and D, and C is the correct answer, they'll give you a description of why C is the correct answer, but they will also tell you why A, B, and D were incorrect. So when developing a selected response item, try to put yourself in the shoes of the students and choose item distractors that again are plausible but not necessarily correct. Try to figure out where students might get tripped up. Selected response items are typically going to be 1 point on the overall score. There will be times using technology-enhanced items where there may be multiple correct answers, and in that case it might be worth more than 1 point. For example, students might be reading a passage and asked to determine 3 pieces of evidence that back up a statement asked in the question. They're going to go through and they're actually going to highlight and drag and drop or copy and paste these into a box on the actual assessment. Choosing all 3 correct answers would in that case be worth 3 points. If they only found 2 of them, it would be worth 2 points. They're recommending that the time requirement for ELA selected response items, this is the literacy test, in grades 3 it's going to be 1 to 3 minutes per item, and grades 4 through 11, 1 to 2 minutes per item. Moving into constructed response questions. Constructed response questions should be clearly written and include a rubric. When we actually get to developing our own, we're going to use the rubrics provided by Smarter Balanced. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just make it question specific. Items will present the task as simply as possible. Items will allow for multiple points of view and interpretations. The responses you could end up with are multiple here. It may be an argumentative piece, either for or against something, but it'll be open-ended enough that students would be able to equally argue based on the information presented to them, the opposing point of view and the pro point of view. If questions are asking students to draw conclusions or make claims about one of the texts that they've read, it will require that students refer back to specific places within that to justify their response. So again, constructed response items will oftentimes require detailed use of evidence to completely receive full points. There are scoring rubrics for all the different types of constructed response items. The guidelines are detailed in each of those, and we're going to spend some more time discussing and looking over these in upcoming months. To answer a constructed response question, however, I want to bring your attention to the bottom of this slide. The maximum time requirement for a constructed response in grades 3 through 11, they don't want them spending more than 5 to 10 minutes on this response. Responses to constructed response items should be concise, short, and to the point. Performance tasks are a whole different breed. In these types of questions, students are given several different stimulus materials. They could be readings, video or audio clips. They're always given a research topic or an issue or a problem, and sometimes they're given graphs and charts and other visuals to add into the mix. They are then given several short research questions that they have to answer during their research time that focus both in on what they've read and what how well they've comprehended it. And then they take the stimulus materials, they process them, and they turn it into some kind of performance or product. This could be an essay, a report, a script, an oral presentation, or a speech with or without graphics. Responses to, of course, those embedded constructed response questions. Performance tasks are big, and they are generally given over 100 minutes to complete both portions of it in 2 sittings. So let's take a look at this prompt. What instruction is necessary to prepare students for a Smarter Balanced Assessment prompt? Take just a minute here to read this prompt to yourself. I'm moving on to the next slide now, so feel free to pause this if you're not done reading it. You can always refer back to it later. The item STEM for this selected response item asks students this: which statement from the text shows how Native Americans survived in North America? And those are their 4 option choices. Only one of these answer choices truly demonstrates a way that people would have survived, and that answer choice is D. But take a look at A, B, and C very quickly. Are these facts that were presented in the prompt itself? Pick one here, hold it in your mind, and let's go back and look at that question again. Take a second to skim through. Is the information that you picked here? This is why this particular question, the distractors for this particular question, are all plausible, just like we saw in our development guide. What I'd like for you to do now is pause the video, log back into Edmodo, and respond to this prompt. What do kids need to be prepared to do to successfully answer this prompt? Pause the video, go back into Edmodo, and respond to it now. You may unpause it whenever you're ready. So, in continuing our discussion on what instruction goes into preparing students for an item, you have 2 options here. In Edmodo, there's a Word document called JFK's Inaugural Address Question, or you can also choose to listen to the speech. But I would like to directly note that on this question on the test, students are not able to listen to the speech. So if you really want to simulate what this is going to be like for a student taking it, I don't recommend listening to the speech on the web. However, you're more than welcome to. Both the document for the inaugural address and the speech itself is located in the JFK Inaugural Address Question folder in Edmodo. Pause this video here and return when you have finished reading or listening to the address. For this particular item STEM, the question is, analyze President Kennedy's beliefs about international relations at the time of his inauguration, and how he expresses those views in this speech. Support your response using details from the text. The rubric by which this will be graded is shown below. Here is a sample response of what a 3-point answer would look like. President Kennedy told other countries, "United, there is little we cannot do," because he believed that all countries should work together for peace, freedom, and liberty. He thought the arms race was dangerous and would only lead to planned or accidental self-destruction. He felt that countries should explore what problems unite them and end the threat of nuclear war. He asked people around the world to work together for freedom and asked our enemies to negotiate for peace. This item received 3 points on a 3-point scale because it gave sufficient evidence that the student was able to analyze how the point of view is presented in the text. It included specific examples and explanations that made a clear reference to the text, and it supported those explanations with details from the text. But it's a short answer, but it did receive the full points. Here's a 2-point response. President Kennedy believed that countries were stronger when they were united for a common cause. He felt that cause should be preserving freedom. He believed people had to work for freedom, and he told Americans, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." This response received 2 points. It gave some evidence of the ability to analyze how the point of view is presented in the text, and it included some specific examples and explanations that made a reference, and it adequately supported those. Wasn't like the 3-point response, but it did adequately explain. Here's a 1-point example. President Kennedy wanted the world to be at peace. He believed everyone should be free and have the liberty to do what they want. He thought countries should work together in order to achieve peace, freedom, and liberty for everyone in the world. Now, this response is much more limited. It includes some explanations, but only really make a vague reference to the text. And there is a detail in there, but the relevance, you really have to infer it for yourself. It's not pointed out to you. And a score point 0. This is one of President Kennedy's most famous speeches. Everyone in America knows the phrase, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." This response did not analyze how the author's point of view is presented in the text, and there was no relevant information from the text given. They did pick a quote, but that quote has nothing to do with and is not supported with evidence that explains how it relates back to the author's point of view. What I would like for you to do now, assume, if you will, the majority of your students last year scored either a 1 or a 0 on this very prompt. What instruction would be necessary for you to move them up from 0s and 1s into the 2 to 3 range? What would you have to build time into your class to do? You may pause the video here and respond to this prompt in Edmodo. Congratulations! This month we covered a quick review of depth of knowledge. We went over the various rules for item stems, which we're going to continue to go over in the future, and we've had a shared conversation online about what instruction should look like to prepare students for a smarter balanced assessment. What we're going to do between now and the next session is a PowerPoint presentation that's been developed. I would like for you to review that PowerPoint in the Choose Your Own Adventure folder on Edmodo and just kind of look through it. We're going to go in deeper with it in November. Remember, if you're keeping track of SBCEUs, to record 3 hours on your SBCEU log sheet, and when we come back next month in November, you're going to take an existing selected response item or multiple choice item from one of your current tests, and we're going to work on upgrading it. This will be the first time you'll have the opportunity to work in your small groups. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in November.